Alright, so Final Fantasy VII Rebirth just launched on PC today, and today we're having a look at it on the RTX 4090. That is paired with the 7800X3D. That again is paired with 32GB of DDR5 6000 megatransfers per second CL30 memory with tuned timings. I'm still in the intro section kinda, but I'm gonna start counting the frame rate here. We're currently at 1440p on the highest settings that I can enable here, and unfortunately the game, it is capped at 120 frames per second, right? I did try the Final Fantasy VII remake hook, but I couldn't get it to work. So yeah, we are 120 frames per second maxed out. Let me just show you the settings here quickly. I can't use my keyboard and mouse as I would like, but let's just go over the settings here. So 1440p, we have an option to select the frame rate cap here. 120 is the max. We got VRR, so no VSync. You can only select the VRR or VSync. And then the graphics quality, high, medium, and low. So currently it says custom because I did select all the dynamic resolution scaling settings to 100% for both the minimum and maximum values. And then we also have access to TAA, TAAU, and DLSS. So no FSR and no XeSS, which is very disappointing. Right, so those are basically the options. You can select how many characters to display on screen. Currently it's maxed out at 10, and as I said, we are getting basically our locked 120 frames per second here. So I'm not going to be testing too much at 1440p. Although this is an Unreal Engine 4 game, just note that there are quite a lot of shader compilation stutters, especially in the beginning, and then maybe a few traversal stutters, but the shader compilation stutters so far have been the most, basically. Right, so as you can see there, a stutter as new effects happen on the screen, and also there is a shader compilation step in the beginning of the game, but it's quite short, like maybe a minute and a half at most on the 7800X3D. So that was it, right? So I'm going to switch over to 4K because we're not going to get a performance improvement here at all. We do have 120 frames per second here, right? So let me get back to 4K and then we'll do some proper testing. All right, so here we are at 4K, still on the exact same settings, basically the ultra preset, well, the custom preset. And now we're just going to run through the same scene. So you will see some credits on screen, sorry about that. But it's just basically the first area after the town, right? The town is a little bit more CPU intensive, but we were able to hit 120 frames per second there in town with the 4090 as well, hitting the frame rate cap. And over here you can see the frame rate fluctuates quite a bit. We were seeing 90 frames per second at times, and now we're seeing 120 frames per second again. Now the way you do DLSS, or sorry, just one thing, the reason why I had to restart the game to get the 4K resolution activated here is if I just show you the settings here again quickly. Unfortunately, we only have so borderless full screen and windowed mode, and in borderless full screen mode you can't select the resolution. We are at 4K, but we can't change the resolution, right? I know it says 1440p here. So what I'll do is we can go into windowed mode, we'll select 4K, right? So just windowed mode. And then if we go back to borderless full screen, it shows 4K, right? So you'll see that the performance does not get impacted by doing that. So 120 frames per second, yeah, going to just run a little bit. I must say the game looks pretty good for an Unreal Engine 4 game. It definitely looks a lot better and runs a lot better than Final Fantasy XVI on PC, that's for sure. And maybe we won't see as many stutters now because we've already run past this area. So the stutters we might see now might be related to traversal stutter, right? And it's the two type of stutters that Unreal Engine is known for. We've got traversal stutter and shader compilation stutter, and unfortunately it's just how it goes. All right, so as you can see, 115 frames per second here. They are more demanding errors, and maybe they are even more demanding errors a little bit later in the game. I'm not going to be playing that far. I'm not really that big of a Final Fantasy fan. I did finish Final Fantasy XVI, but I tried Final Fantasy VII Remake and did not really enjoy it that much. Not really my type of game. Alright, so 118-ish frames per second here. So let me just show you how you change the DLSS settings here, the render resolution scale. So we've got minimum and maximum. So, and we do have DLSS enabled here, but we can't select a DLSS preset. So you have to manually select 66% for DLSS quality, right? So DLSS quality at 4K. I'm first just going to do the DLSS testing and then we'll do the preset testing. But now we are locked again to 120 frames per second. Our GPU usage is sitting at around between 70 and 80%. So a lot of headroom there, and we'll have a bit of a battle here as well. Let me just, can I skip this? I can. Let me just reset the lows here quickly. Oh, it's annoying. Sorry. All right, so let me reset the lows and we'll just fight a little bit. But you can see the frame times aren't really that smooth. We do drop below 120 frames per second at times, even though it's not really a GPU issue. Our GPU usage is hovering in the mid 70s to the mid 80s, right? And we did see a little bit of stuttering. Our 1% and 0.1% lows aren't really great. All right, so the DLSS quality is basically all that's required on a 4090 to get 4K 120 frames per second, even on max settings. So let's go back to native, and then we'll just test the graphical presets. So we'll just go here, make it 100% again, just make sure that both are set to 100% to prevent any dynamic resolution scaling, where everything is set to ultra here. So let's just check the frame rate here in the specific spot. So 115 frames per second. Let me just get rid of that. And we are fully GPU bound. You can see 100% GPU usage, 371 on the GPU power there. So 115 frames per second. And then if we go ahead and just drop this down to the normal high preset, basically just the high preset, just make sure that you do set the render resolution scale again. So sure. Okay, so the high preset is actually where we were now. It does set the background model detail to ultra. Okay, so that makes it easy. Let's go to medium and then also just make sure to set this to 100% because we do not want any render resolution scaling to take effect here. Now we can see that the characters displayed on screen and the shadow distance have changed, and that's pretty much it. We do have texture resolution on medium. It's really not necessary on a 24 gigabyte GPU, obviously. And now we didn't gain that much, right? We're not hitting our limit yet. Looking this way, we are, but we went from 115 to, like, I'd say we're borderline limit because our GPU usage is still 100%, right? And GPU power is still 360 to 370 watt. The textures look very good. I was really amazed to find out that this game is running on Unreal Engine 4 because the texture detail looks pretty good. I thought maybe there must be some nanite if we just look at the ground textures here. Right, I also did test this, just trying to start it up on a GTX 1660 Super, yeah, and it did not want to load up. So the minimum requirements of an RTX 20 series GPU definitely, well, I mean, it is definitely required. And although just resetting the numbers here again, and although the GTX 1660 Super is part of the Turing architecture, it does not have Tensor cores or RT cores, so we can't use DLSS or ray tracing on that. And the requirement for this game does mention shader model 6.6, and from what I can basically understand is that the 1660 Super does not support shader model 6.6, right? I'm just pressing buttons here. Anyway, it seems to be easy just pressing buttons. All right, so basically I'm not getting a locked 120 frames per second here. So let me just see if the medium preset gets us there. We are a medium, right? Sorry. So if we just change it to the low preset, although it does say custom. So let's select low. everything is now set to low. We do have render resolution scale to 50% as well, but let's just make it 100% to see what happens here. And if we then look at our frame rate here, we are getting 120 frames per second, but we are basically almost GPU bound again. At times we are seeing 100% GPU usage there, 99. So we're basically, I don't think we'll get much more than 120 frames per second in this specific spot here, even if we do unlock the frame rate, because there's not a lot of headroom here. So basically DLSS, there's a lot of pop in here now. The texture detail, ground detail definitely looks pretty bad, and there's a lot of texture pop in and foliage pop in, draw distance pop in, a lot of pop in apparently. So in this sense, I do believe that it's probably definitely better to just use DLSS instead of dropping the quality to these kinds of levels. So 4K DLSS quality will get you 120 frames per second all of the time in this specific spot anyway. So I just want to test one more thing, just the difference between TAA and DLSS. So we're going to go back and here we are. We're going to select the high preset again. Okay, and make sure we set that to 100%, ultra. I'm going to, okay, so everything is set to 10, and we've got DLSS here. Okay, so which means it's DLAA, native resolution DLAA, and 100% GPU usage. I just want to get to a point where the frame rate is slightly lower. Just want to see. All right, so I think this is maybe at 113 frames per second. So if we then switch to TAA, so let's just go, yeah, we do have TAAU and TAA. Not sure what the difference is, because I mean it is temporal anti-aliasing and then it is temporal anti-aliasing upsampling, but because we use 100% render resolution scale, these two should be the same, right? I believe. So TAA, just want to see what the overheads of DLAA are, and now you can see we are able to hit 120 frames per second in this specific spot. We're on the verge once again. GPU usage is sitting at 100%, 360 watt GPU power, and VRAM allocated is not that bad. It's around 10.5 gig, although the recommended specs recommend 12 gigs of VRAM at 4K. So that seems to check out, because in the town era the VRAM usage is slightly more. But if you want to play at 4K native, just use TAA instead of DLAA, and you'll get a slight bump to your frame rate here. Can we kill animals here? I mean, all right. So 120 frames per second, almost locked, is definitely possible at 4K native. Just use TAA instead of DLAA. But I do think that DLAA definitely looks quite a bit better, and it is definitely noticeable at 4K resolution. So over here we're still dropping below 120 frames per second, right? So 111, maybe it's just as the screen updates as I turn, but there we go. So 116 frames per second, we're not able to hit 120 frames per second in this spot. So let's just then see what the difference is if we switch to TAAU without selecting any upscaling. I highly doubt there'll be a difference, right? So let's go ahead and don't move. So yeah, exactly the same applies here. Maybe TAAU does get applied once you actually play around with the render resolution scale. That I mean, that makes sense. So if we then use TAAU and just set it to 66%, right? So everything 66%. I think we can maybe use the maximum as 100%, although now we won't know what the render resolution scale is. So now it means that it can go as low as 66% up to 100%. With this, it is locked to 66%, right? So I just want to see, we should be able to get 120 frames per second here, and we are. It definitely looks sharper than DLSS, but not in a positive way. It looks kind of over sharpened, especially if you move the mouse. Just look at the halo effect around his name is Cloud, right? Around his head you can see grainy effects, like it's a grainy halo effect, where I don't think that happens with DLSS. So let's try that one more time and then we are basically done with the video. So DLSS 66%, so DLSS quality here at 4K. Let's just see if we move. It's definitely a lot better. So DLSS, definitely the way to go. Yeah, unfortunately, if you do have an Intel GPU or an AMD GPU, you are going to be stuck with TAAU, unfortunately. I really don't understand why games in 2025 still only release with DLSS and not FSR or XeSS. Sure, Intel does not have a large market share at the moment, but it's definitely XeSS is usable by almost all GPUs anyway, so I think it should be added anyway. That's just my opinion. All right, so I think this is where we're going to leave it. I don't know where I am. I don't know where I'm supposed to be going, but I think I'm done here with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Anyway, I am looking at getting new GPUs maybe sometime next week. Hopefully sometime next week. I'll try and get my hands on a B580. So I'll be sure to upload a new video using that. Right, that's going to be the end of this video. Sorry, it's a little bit boring because of the frame rate cap, and I could not get rid of that, unfortunately, but so it goes. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and as always, we hope to see you in the next one.